welcome back to my channel. My name is Miss Yancy and this is my garden. And the garden look a mess, so y'all not gonna be seeing it today, okay? Today we about to have some conversations. Per the title of this video, we are going to be getting into the epic fails in my garden that I had this year, 2024. So that is what we'll be talking about today, okay? It is freezing. Ooh, it's so cold out here. But yes, y'all, I was like, you know what? Instead of taking you guys into my garden, there's a few things that I can harvest. Like I have some parsley that is still alive in there. I have some kale in there and it is still alive, but it needs to be watered and it's just super cold. I mean, everything. If I show you guys, you know what? Let me know in the comment if I should give you guys like a tour of after the frost, what actually happened to my garden and all the tomatoes and peppers that was in here that I did not collect. Let me know in the comments if you guys want me to do a video like that and I'll show you guys this crazy looking garden. It is a mess. So today I'll just be going over about 12 to 13 things that failed in my garden and what I will be doing different next year to combat those failures and in hopes of me having a thriving or more thriving garden next year. If you've been following me for a while, you already know I did have a really good garden season as far as like the peppers and just some of the things that I had a lot of harvest. You know, for the most part, it was a great season, but I still had a ton of fail on things that I would have liked to have, but it did not go the way that I wanted it to. And I want to talk to you guys about it and tell you guys what my future for next garden season is going to be about. So if you have some of these failures, you might want to stick around and see some of the things that went wrong in my garden this year and my plans to combat it and what I started to do this year to help the situation, even though it may have been a little too late, but it's okay. The thing about failure is it is there to teach you a lesson so that you can learn from it and be able to do it better the next time. So let's get into it, y'all. Come along. I hope you're here to stay.
One look and I breathe.
Ooh, it's cold, y'all. It is freezing. What is the temperature where you are located? Because I am in the DMV, specifically Maryland, and it is freezing. Today is like in the 20s. So I know some of you guys that are in much colder temperatures like, what is the 20s? That's nothing. Talk about negatives or zeros, but hey, for Maryland, that's cold, okay? So bear with me. We're about to get into it. I will be showing you guys clips of my gardening as we're having this conversation, just to show you guys, you know, basically what I'm talking about. So I just wanted to come on here and have this conversation with y'all because I know a lot of you guys have seen my gardening. You're probably like, oh my gosh, your gardening is so beautiful. It looks amazing. What have you been doing? Oh my gosh, mine sucks. And I'm here to tell you guys that I also had a lot of gardening fails. Yes, I did have a lot of wins, but I also had a lot of fails. And there are things that I could have done differently that would have changed the outcome of those specific things that went wrong in my garden. And these are some easy fixes as well that you could fix that can also transform your garden to where you want it to be next year. So I have a small urban garden. I am in Maryland, zone 8A. So if you're in that zone and you're in this area, you're probably about to feel the struggles that we're about to talk about. The first fail in my garden this year would have been cucumbers. Isn't it crazy that cucumbers was a major fail? When I say major, it was an epic fail. I actually planted about 3 to 4, probably more than 4 cucumber plants, and I planted it in May after Mother's Day like everything else, and it just didn't do well at all. First of all, let's go back to the beginning. I started the seeds for those cucumbers in, I believe, at the end of April, early March, which was a huge mistake. And if you grow those type of plants, you will know that you should not start too early. Things like cucumbers and squash, you don't want to start it too early because they grow extremely fast and they're going to start getting really big. I started the seeds indoors, so when I started the seed, they grew really quickly. This was my first time growing any kind of squash type of plants, so I wasn't aware that they grew so fast. You really do not need to start the seeds indoors. I think that they grow perfectly when you direct sow the seeds into the soil outdoors rather than transplanting the seedlings. But because I went with the notion of how I did it last year. This is my second year of gardening, so there's a lot of things that I didn't know. Even though I did a lot of research, there's just some mistakes that I was gonna make, and it's totally fine because that's a part of gardening. You are gonna make a lot of mistakes, and you're going to learn from those mistakes. If you don't, you're gonna feel it because your plant may not be as healthy, or you might not just get the results that you want. The first failure for me was starting them too early because they grew so big. I started them in April and I was transplanting them in May, so that's like over a month and a half of it growing. It didn't need that long indoors. So I transplanted the cucumbers after Mother's Day, like I stated earlier, and I thought I did everything I was supposed to. I water the cucumber plants every single day. I also use fertilizers, I use bone meal, I use fish meal, I use worm castings, I use banana water, which is one of my favorite type of fertilizers. The thing is, the cucumber plant grew very well, but it did not produce any cucumbers, which was quite shocking to me because before I started gardening, I started looking for like what are the easy things to grow, and one of those things everybody talked about was cucumbers, and they're absolutely right. Cucumbers definitely, I think they say it's easy because it grows really fast. It was very green, it was beautiful. I grew it on my arch that is in the entrance of my garden, and it was such a beautiful arch, very green and lush and gorgeous, but there was no cucumber in sight. So I'm like, okay, is it because I started the seeds off too early so it didn't transplant well? So I didn't understand why the cucumbers wasn't growing at all, and I did all kind of research to try to figure out what was going on, and it just, for some reason, the cucumbers wasn't trying to grow. So I was like, you know what, maybe I should give it some time and see what happens. So I think it got to like July, which really sucked because July was extremely hot. We had a drought. It did not rain at all in July, so I was definitely out here early in the morning watering as well as nighttime. No cucumber plant in sight. So now heading to August, I got one cucumber, y'all, one cucumber. And I was super excited about that one cucumber, but I was so upset because I worked really hard to start these seeds and plant them, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm about to have cucumber galore. Since they said it was so easy, and then I got the arch with the cattle panel that I got from Tractor Supply, I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to have the cucumbers hanging off, and it's just gonna be beautiful. I was like, you know what, these cucumbers really show me pepe, okay? In Africa we say show you pepe, show you pepe. If it's showing you pepe, like it's showing you problems. You thought it was about to be sweet, but it ain't. Pretty much is what the cucumber did to me. How is it that I can grow the easiest thing in the garden according to all the gardeners? You know, I'm like, this must be the hardest thing to grow. I did not grow any cucumbers this summer. Only one came, and it was a beautiful cucumber. It was delicious. It had tons of seeds in the middle. Oh my goodness. Number two is the corn. So this was my second year growing corn. I tried to grow corn last year, and those evil squirrels with some other animal that I have no clue who they are. They could have been voles, they could have been groundhog, it could have been any of those. I planted the corn in my raised bed last year, and they ate everything. They left none behind. After I transplanted the corn, they allow it to grow for a little bit, and then they just came, like one day I went outside and I saw that all the corns were pulled up from the roots, and they ate all of the roots. I couldn't even replant it. So this year I was like, you know what, I know what was the issue last year. I guess I did not protect them well enough last year because I still had some insect netting around my raised beds, but they still managed to climb in there somehow, and they ate all my corn and okras and everything else that I grew last year in that bed. And so this year I decided to grow my corn in grow bags because I saw this girl on Instagram that grows her corn in grow bags, and I was like, ooh, this is such a wonderful challenge, like let me try it out. I was like, you know what, maybe if I grow it in a grow bag, since it's not in ground, it would be harder for the squirrels to climb up there, or you know, it would discourage them to climb up there to get to the corn, and it's gonna be better. So for the most part, majority of the growing season, the corn grew very well. Corn started to develop on the cob. I mean, everything was great. And then one day we had that storm, Hurricane Helene came and basically knocked everything over in the garden. And the corn was one of those things that they were all knocked over, and I had to go back and stand them back up and stake them so they could stand up. And I think that after Hurricane Helene knocked those corns over, I think the squirrels had the opportunity to look at them. It's like, oh my gosh, this been here this entire time and we haven't seen it. And I'm telling you, those corn got to, like, they were taller than me. They got to at least, I would say, close to 6 feet. I would say 6 to 7 feet. They were really tall. They got really tall. They were growing very well. It was so healthy. And I had a bunch of cobs on them, and I looked to see if the corn was growing on a cob, and it was. I think after Hurricane Helene came and knocked them over, the squirrels and all the other critters that's on the ground got to see that where they were and what they looked like, and they saw that it was something that they were interested in. I'm telling you guys, like the following week, those squirrels, I mean, they just started attacking the corn. They started eating it. They ate all of the corn. I got like maybe 3 or 4 corns. And then also, one of the things that caused the corn not to fully grow, apart from the animals, after Hurricane Helene, I try to stake the corn back up, and I use a stake, and then I use one of those pipe cleaners. You guys, I think I did a video showing you guys of how I stake the corn and using the pipe cleaners to help with them. That wasn't the greatest idea, because what it did was stunt the growth of the actual corn on the cob. So when I tied the pipe cleaners around the corn and the stake, some of those places that I tied it in were where the corn was growing. It hadn't started to grow yet, but apparently that was where the corn was going to shoot from. So what that did was the corn started to grow, but then it started to grow in like a small area, in like a small space. So it wasn't able to grow like, you know, the long cob that we're used to. So that stunted the growth a little bit. So I got like these tiny little baby corns that had corn on them, but they could have gotten bigger if I did not put the pipe cleaners on there, y'all. The struggle. Those corn was such a problem. Oh my gosh. I was so excited because last year I had such a fail, and I'm thinking that this year it was going to be better. And I did all these wonderful things to try to protect them. And ultimately the animals still got to it. They ate majority of the corn. And then the ones I was able to get, they were really tiny because I stunted the growth from using those pipe cleaners. I was like, you know what, whatever. I was already exhausted. Y'all know gardening, it is hard, and I grew a ton of stuff this year. I was already tired. I'm like, you know what, look, at least I got something out of this. And, you know, I try to turn it around and make it a laughing matter, or, you know, try to look at the good in the bad, pretty much. But yes, y'all, those animals, those evil squirrels, that's what I'm telling y'all, they're evil. I mean, they were jumping all up in that corn. They did not care that I had some netting around it. I had some bird netting around it. The birds were still able to get to it. They would stand on top of the netting and eat the corn through the netting. Their beaks were making it in there. And then the squirrels made it easier for them too, because the squirrels pretty much tore those bird netting. Ugh, y'all, it was terrible. But can you believe that's just number 2? And we got like 13 of these. So number 3 on some of my epic fails are peppers. So this year I decided that I was gonna grow a ton of peppers. I grew jalapenos, I grew habaneros, I grew bell peppers, I grew some Asian hot peppers, I grew some cayenne pepper. Now, everything with the exception of the Asian hot peppers, I started them from seed. So the Asian hot peppers, I went to the Asian market and they had some seedlings, and it was like, oh, Asian hot long peppers. You know those like long Asian peppers that you see in the store if you go to the Asian market. So I was like, I would love to have some of these. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so cool that I am gonna have like an entire bed filled with different peppers that I'm gonna use for my stews. And one of my main goals this year was to grow things that my family eat, and not just grow them because it was cute to grow, it was easy to grow. With the exception of squash and cucumbers, I grew everything that my family eats. So the peppers that I started from seeds, y'all, I started these peppers in March. The seeds that I have for the bell peppers, I did not purchase those seeds. I purchased the seeds for all the other peppers, but the bell peppers, I did not purchase the seeds because I cook with a ton of bell peppers, and every time I cook with bell peppers, I always save the seeds. So I use those seeds to plant this year. So I started the seeds in March, and it took forever for them to germinate. So after I did the germination process, I put them in there, and they took forever to like grow like little leaves. And mind you, I did not use a heat mat, which is probably a good idea to use when you're starting peppers indoors and you wanted to grow faster. I didn't use a heating mat, and the reason why I did not use one is because I thought I had enough time for them to grow, because if I started the seeds in March, I'm transplanting them in May, so that's a good 2 months of growth, I'm thinking, you know, for it to produce. And this is my first time growing peppers, and did not take into account how long peppers take to grow and to bear fruit. I did not think that it take as long because I'm used to growing tomatoes, which is very easy to grow. In my opinion, tomatoes are the easiest thing you could grow in a garden. I don't think cucumbers are. I think tomatoes are, and the bugs that you fight is not the same as the bugs you fight for cucumbers and squashes. Anyway, back to the peppers. Transplanted them in May, and you will see in the video that it was transplanted at a decent size. Like, it grew pretty tall by May. Apparently it wasn't mature enough to start producing, you know, peppers by July or August. The only peppers that really started to produce during the summer after transplanting was the Asian peppers, and that was because there were already seedlings that I purchased from the Asian market, so it was already matured. And transplanting them, they were already, you know, ready to start fruiting. They started fruiting way faster than the ones that I started from seed, which the ones that I started from seed, they were transplanted at a very mature, to me it was very mature because it was the same size as the tomatoes that I transplanted. So I just thought, like, you know, it was gonna have the same growing patterns with the tomatoes, but that was unfortunately not. The habanero started to grow like a month later, and then it was still tiny. It was still taking its own precious time to grow, y'all. I mean, own precious time. It was in no rush at all. The bell peppers, which are the peppers that I really wanted because that's the one I cook with a lot, they didn't start to fruit till like the end of summer. Like, can you guys believe that? And I've shown you guys videos of them and how long it took. I mean, the crazy thing is I just did a harvest of my last peppers, which I got at the end of November. Can you believe I got peppers at the end of November? Like, I was harvesting peppers at the end of November. If you haven't seen that video, it's gonna be in the description and you can go ahead and watch it. I posted it last week. That was my last harvest of peppers. And this is just to show you how long it took for the peppers to mature and actually produce and fruit. Y'all, it took forever. Once they started to bear fruit, it was almost like too late because we were already in fall. So I didn't really get a lot of bell peppers like I should have. I didn't get a lot of habaneros like I should have based on the amount of pepper plants that I planted. I definitely had over 20 pepper plants. I should have had like a massive amount of peppers with the amount of plants that I planted. I mean, like, granted, it was good amount of, you know, peppers that I got for my family, but I thought this was something I was going to be able to sell. I was going to be able to give away to family, and it was not even close, y'all. So those bell peppers, they took so freaking long. Oh my gosh, they took so long to like start to bear fruit, and I was so sad because it started to get cold, and that's when they really wanted to grow. It's like they were at the stage where they were ready to like start bearing fruit, and then it was cold. So, you know, of course, you know, peppers don't do well with cold. So I mean, right now everything's in there is dead in the garden. So I thought about winterizing some of the peppers, but I'm like, this growing season was so stressful and exhausting. I'm gonna use the winter to clean and just restart. And I love the restarting process anyway, but we'll talk more about what we're gonna do later on to make sure that don't happen again. But yes, y'all, that was my fail with the peppers. I still got peppers this summer, but it wasn't as much as I should have gotten with the amount of pepper plants that I planted. I might make this a two-part and split it in two since it's such a long list. Number 4 on the list, y'all. So I grew some grapes. I purchased the grape plants from the store. I did not start it from seed. God, no. There are just certain things that I'm gonna choose not to grow from seed, and one of those was grapes because grapes take a long time to fruit. So what I did was I went to the store and I purchased a mature grape plant that was already established, and I knew that it wasn't gonna bear a lot of fruit this year because grapes, you know, take a while to bear fruit, but at least me purchasing the plant that was already established, it was gonna cut down on the amount of years that it would take for the grapes to, you know, fully grow. So I think the one that I got was a grape plant that was like 2 years old, and I planted them. And then I also got some grape plant that was like a couple of months old, so those are probably going to take some years to actually fruit. But the ones that was already 2 years old, they bear some fruit this year, and I showed you guys the video as well. And y'all, when the fruits came, when I tell y'all, the birds, I have never seen so many birds in my backyard. And granted, y'all see behind me, I do have a lot of trees in my backyard. I have a ton of trees, I have a ton of bushes, so there's a lot of wildlife that live here. There's a lot of wildlife that call this place their home, unfortunately. I know, this is their home too. We're all sharing, whatever. I do love them though. I enjoy, you know, hearing their songs and their noises, but my God, can y'all leave my food alone? Y'all could have some, but dang. One day I'm sitting in my living room and I look outside into the garden and I saw a whole family reunion going on around my grape plants. And this time it was on my trellis, because I have a trellis for my grapes, like an arch trellis. I saw an entire family of birds. And when I say family, I'm not talking about immediate family. I'm talking about extended family they haven't talked to in a long time. They were invited to this feast, y'all. Oh my goodness. They were all surrounding the plants. They were eating those grapes down. By the time I got out here, they had already eaten, like, I would say 90% of my grapes. So the remaining grapes, what I did was came and put some organza bags around it. I was like, y'all can't finish all these grapes, y'all. But yes, y'all, I know they were disappointed, but were they disappointed though? Because I think they were full, okay? And honestly, if I would have roasted some of those birds, they probably would have tasted really good, sweet and savory, okay? Because the sweetness would have came from the grapes and the savory would have been that seasonings I would have laid on them and put on my grill. But you know what? We don't eat birds. Those birds. Wait till we're in the wilderness though. But yes, y'all, it was so crazy. But let's go to the next one. Number 5, y'all. Strawberries. So I planted some strawberries that I bought from the store. I didn't start them from seeds. I actually purchased the seedlings and they were for my kids. My kids love strawberries, so it was their project. They planted it. It was a fun little thing that we did. I just didn't realize how many animals liked strawberries. So are you guys getting the theme of this video? Is not realizing the amount of animals or pests that you have in your backyard until you plant something. That's when you realize that everybody and their mama live out here with you. It's not just you and your family in your house. In your backyard you got an extended family. That's what I figured out after I started a garden like this one this year, because my garden became an entire ecosystem. And you'll learn about that more. Like every time a strawberry grew, it was like, I don't know if it was like an antenna sending signals to these animals, but these evil squirrels knew every single time there was a strawberry that popped out, and they popped out with the strawberries. I couldn't get any. They ate those strawberries down. Granted, we did get some strawberries, but it was really hard to protect those strawberries from these animals. Like, they kept eating it. I mean, and then I did not know bunnies were so sneaky, because for the longest time I thought the fox ate all the bunnies. And yes, y'all, we do have a fox somewhere in this neighborhood. I think in one of my videos I showed the fox jumping over the fence. It's just, it's crazy. There was one year where we had a lot of bunnies showing up and, you know, looking cute. And then the next year, which was this year, I didn't see bunnies at all, actually. And if I saw one, it was like a baby bunny. So I thought the fox had eaten all of them. But apparently they're very sneaky, and they probably have to be sneaky because there's a fox in the neighborhood. They ate all my strawberries. I can't. All right, on to number 6. This one is so painful to talk about, y'all. This is like one of the most painful fails because this is something that I really use in my home. This is something that I eat. This is something I cook with in all of my meals. When I go grocery shopping, it is something that's always on my list. These are 2 things: garlic and onions. And I know if y'all been following this channel, y'all already know the story with my garlic and onions. They were an epic fail, okay? Epic fail. Y'all, so I planted my garlic and onions in the bed. I don't know if y'all can see, like right there. And I was thinking that, you know, I'm good with the garlic and onions because there are things that pests don't like. They don't like the smell of it. During my research, people said that garlic is actually poisonous to squirrels. That's what I heard. I didn't go further to see how true that is. Y'all let me know in the comments if that's true. I thought garlic and onions were gonna be the easiest thing I actually grew in my garden, and it was the most epic fail. At least with everything else that I'm about to talk about with you guys on this list, I actually got something. If it was only one, like the cucumber, I got something, but the garlic and onions, I got 0. I planted those garlic and onions and I did not know about those leaf miners. I didn't know about those insects, and apparently those are the things to watch out for when you are growing garlic and onions. I didn't know about them. I did not cover the garlic and onions. I'm like, you know what, those are going to be the easiest things to grow. The pests don't like them, animals don't like them, they're disgusting to them, and so they're not going to bother it. And for the most part, the animals didn't bother it, but every single day it grew very well. It was so beautiful. Oh, it was smelling wonderful. And then later on, after like they grew to a certain point, I started realizing that they started disappearing one by one, and I grew over 50 garlic and onions. And I was wondering, why are they disappearing one by one? I am in a garden group on Facebook. If you're not in one and you have a garden, try looking into getting into a garden group. I have a private garden group on Facebook called Sow, Grow, and Pray Christian Gardening Circle. It is a private group on Facebook that I started. It's about finding God in nature. I started that group because when I first started gardening, that was something that I was constantly in. I constantly saw the word of God in nature, and I felt like God was speaking to me through gardening, through putting my hands through the soil and just being out here in nature and growing my own food. So that was something that I started. That is where I learned about the leaf miners. I got tons and tons of comments telling me about the leaf miners and how I need to cover my garlic bed with insect netting because they will definitely decimate your entire garden full of onions and garlic. Oh, it was so tragic, y'all, because it was too late, because I guess the way they operate is when they come up, they lay eggs within the plant. So it's like, it's kind of hard to like cover them after the fact. After you've seen that it happened to them, you can go ahead and cover it, but it's really hard to tell whether or not it's going to save your garlic or onions, because at that point they probably have already laid eggs into all the other ones. So that was my situation. I didn't get one garlic or onion. I was so sad because those are the two things that I cook with the most in every single meal that I cook in my home, every single time I cook. So it was really tragic that I didn't even get one. It's all good. I did some woosah. The bed that they were growing in, I put some tomato seedlings in there, that like extra tomato seedlings that I had, and we're gonna get 2 tomatoes because I grew way too many. I didn't need all those tomatoes, but hey, at least the bed didn't go to waste, and it was in the middle of the summer, and I would have hated to see a garden bed just sitting there empty and letting it be a playground for those evil squirrels and all their family members. So now we talked about tomatoes, we're getting to the 7th fail. So tomatoes. Now when I'm talking about fail in this instance, because tomatoes weren't like, I won't say a fail. So last year the only successful thing that I had in my garden were the tomatoes, and I grew so many, and it got to a point where I was still producing tomatoes in December, and I got tired. It was getting cold. I'm like, okay, I am so tired of harvesting these tomatoes, and I didn't know what to do with the green ones, so I just threw all of it in my compost. And you'll hear me talk about compost a lot throughout this video because I create my own compost, which I use to pretty much fertilize my garden beds. I threw them in my compost not thinking there were going to be thousands of tomato seeds in my compost. And y'all, I put the compost in every single grow bag, raised beds that I used this year. And when I tell y'all, I had a ton, I could say 1,000 seedlings. I might be exaggerating with 1,000 volunteers, but it might be true because it was a ton of tomato volunteers. And on top of that, I grew a ton of seedlings from indoors. I don't know, I probably grew like over 30 tomatoes this year, and that's excluding the volunteers. So I already had 1 million tomatoes that I was growing and didn't even know where I was gonna put them. I don't know why I grew so many. And then coming out to all these volunteers, so in every single one of my beds, my raised beds, it had a ton of tomato volunteers. So it gave me a ton of work. I had to keep going in there, pulling them out. It was like weeds, y'all. Oh my God, I spent majority of like throughout the entire summer just pulling them out. They were growing everywhere in random places. I have a fear that it might be similar next year because in my main tomato garden bed, there were several storms that happened here. And so I wasn't able to harvest. So a lot of the tomatoes fell off because they were over ripened. So they fell off the vine into the bed. So I already know in that bed I'm gonna have a ton of tomato volunteers, and now I'm wondering if I should even start any tomatoes indoors next year. So I might not even need to, but I want to because there's certain tomatoes that I want to grow and I want to make sure that I grow it. So it looks like next year I will be giving away a ton of tomato seedlings or volunteers that may grow, or I might just have to sell them. Crossing fingers, it's not going to be in all of the tomato beds because this year I made it a point not to put any tomatoes into my compost, at least with the seeds in them. Oh y'all, let's get to the next fail. Squash. I should have put the squash and the cucumbers in the same boat because they were similar to what happened, but with the squash, they kept producing male flowers and no female flowers were coming. It's similar to the cucumbers. I didn't get any cucumber, like female flowers with the cucumbers for a long time. It was all male flowers. I grew, I think, 3 squash plants, and I think I got 3 or 4 squashes from all 3 squash plants. Squash and zucchinis, you know, they're all in the same boat. There's supposed to be something that grows very easily according to all the other gardeners, but apparently squashes and cucumbers are things that are very difficult for me to grow. One of the issues were the squash bugs. They definitely destroyed some of my squash. I tried my best to protect it from the squash bugs, but also I think it was the heat that caused the cucumbers and squashes not to produce female flowers. I don't know. I just don't know if it was just the seeds. I have no clue. I cannot tell you what the issue was, but those were definitely a fail. So next, the brassicas. So I have some, I think they're collard greens. Like, I'm not sure what they are because I got it from my neighbor, which is on like another street from here. They really didn't do well because those bugs tore it up. Y'all know those beautiful white butterflies? They are deadly. If y'all see white butterflies around your brassicas, you need to get it away because it is going to eat those babies. They're going to lay their eggs and they're going to produce those nasty looking caterpillars, and those caterpillars that are this tiny can eat an entire leaf of broccoli or collard green. Like, you know how big those leaves are. As a matter of fact, one of them can eat the entire plant, and that was what happened. Ooh, as I'm talking about it, it's like giving me the heebie-jeebies because y'all know how it looks when they start to eat it. Like, they'll eat like a little piece here, a little piece there, and then it started looking like those netted stockings with like holes in them. Ooh, it looks so disgusting. Like, the brassicas, I left them alone. I was like whatever, the white butterflies could eat them, but I should have covered it. And I seen the white butterflies go around them, but I didn't realize that the white butterflies was what was laying those eggs to create those caterpillars, y'all. That was a fail. So I have lettuce on here. They weren't really a fail. The only thing I would say that was a fail was that I grew too many and there were just way too many slugs. Ugh, the slugs were just all over. It was so disgusting. And I tried everything to get rid of those slugs. Ugh, it just did not work out. But, you know, ultimately it was not a fail. It was just, the fail was like there was just way too many slugs and I was so disgusted and I had to wash it like a billion times before I ate it because slugs are disgusting. But yeah, all of these things that we're talking about, I will tell you guys what I plan to do next year that is hopefully going to combat all of the issues that I had this year with these plants. So the soil, my soil, I wouldn't say my soil was a fail, but where the fail was, I used 5 cubic yards of leaf mulch. So I had soil from last year that was already in the bed. This year was my first year using grow bag, and I put leaf mulch on top of all of the raised beds, and then I left the leaf mulch in the grow bags that I used, and I didn't mix the ones in the grow bags with any topsoil or anything. What makes it a fail is that leaf mulch is leaf. Okay, it is very light. It is not soil, you know, it's not sand or anything like that. You have to mix it with something else like a topsoil, and I did not do that, and I just grew my plants in the leaf mulch and it grew very well, but I found myself having to water it more frequently because it dried 10 times faster because of how light it is and it's leaf. My God, it dried faster. I had to water like almost every day, and I'm not exaggerating. In July, I definitely water every day because those things were dry. My plants were struggling. It was so hard for them to retain the water that I was putting in them. Of course, you know, the ones in a grow bag, the water goes away as soon as you water it. So imagine using leaf mulch is definitely going to dry out faster too because it's leaf. Unlike if it was soil, like, yeah, the water may go away, but the soil may still soak up some of that water. So, but that wasn't the case with the leaf mulch. Don't be like me if you use leaf mulch, which I love leaf mulch. I love how airy it is. It just needs to be mixed. That was what caused a lot of the work that I had to do this year. Next on this list, y'all, mosquitoes. That's all I have to say. Why are there so many mosquitoes in my backyard? Like, if y'all see in all of my videos of the past videos that I've done this summer, this growing season, I've been dressed like this. So I'm dressed like this right now because it's cold, but during the summer, the spring and summertime, I was always in long sleeve because there were so many mosquitoes in my backyard. I literally could have put a box over my head. That's how much mosquitoes was out here. I tried everything. I tried to spray, and I had to be careful with spraying because my garden is an organic garden. I don't use any pesticides like that. Like the pesticides that I use are all natural pesticides. That's if I do use them. We'll talk about that in another videos, like the pesticides that I use this year to help with some things. But I like really pride myself in growing an organic garden, and I don't want to use like any chemicals and stuff like that around my plants. And I really struggled this year with the mosquitoes, and I really need to figure out what I'm gonna do next year to really combat that issue, because it really didn't make gardening as enjoyable as I wanted it to be. I enjoyed being out here, but the mosquitoes was just terrible. It was way too many. I was scared to open my mouth. All those videos y'all saw me recording in a garden, I was really scared to open my mouth because those mosquitoes would have went up in there. That's how much mosquitoes I had in my backyard, specifically in my garden area, which is like further down the hill. If y'all have any suggestions about what I'm gonna do next year, please let your girl know in the comments, because these mosquitoes really terrify me. They harassed me. They really made my gardening suck. And I thought I was about to be out here prancing around in a cute little dress with some shorts and stuff and telling you guys and looking cute. I wanted to be a cute little garden girl this year and sharing that with you guys, because gardening doesn't have to be always dressed down and looking like you work on a farm. You can make it cute too. You could be a cute little farmer girl, and I thought that's what I was going to be, a cute little farmer girl this year. And I thought wrong, because I was definitely dressed up like I live in Alaska in the heat of the summer, okay? In July, I was wearing long sleeve when it was over 100 degrees out here in the garden, trying to garden and film my gardening for you guys. So that is what I do not look forward to next year. Last but not least, number 13 on the list. Number 13 on the list, y'all. I'm so scared to talk about it because now I gotta look around to make sure I don't see any. And y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. Snakes. Oof. Y'all. If you've been following me for a while, you know my snake stories. You can go look at some YouTube shorts that got probably 100K views or more. I don't know. I know it's a lot. And my TikTok, it has a lot of views of me talking about, it's getting dark out here, so I need to hurry up, of my snake experience. This year I had 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 snakes sightings in my garden this year. So imagine how many I did not see. Hell no. Y'all, 4 snakes was in my garden this year, and if you know me, you know that I am not a fan of snakes. And before you say anything, I know snakes are wonderful for the environment. They do God's work. They get rid of things that we do not want. They get rid of rodents. They get rid of all of the nasty things that you don't want in your garden or around your house or in your house. Before you say any of that, trust me, I already know. And I still don't want to see these mothers. I still don't want to see them. And I appreciate all of their hard work. Keep going strong, keep doing your thing, but can you do it behind the scenes? Can you do it when I'm not outside? Can you so yes, y'all. So this year we actually caught 4 snakes in the garden. So that's why I was telling you, my garden was an actual ecosystem this year, and pretty much that's why I was saying I really didn't use a lot of pest control, because of it being a whole ecosystem. It was taking care of itself. Whatever it did in my garden, thank you for doing it. I would not like to see y'all again. So some of them got caught in my bird netting that I use to protect my plants from the other pests, like the evil squirrels and those nasty groundhogs and those tricky bunnies. I use insect nettings and bird nettings to protect my plants from them, but the snakes kept getting caught in them. I probably wouldn't have seen those snakes if those nettings weren't there, but also I think 2 of them got caught up in that netting. Actually, 3 of them got caught up in the netting, and then I saw one that was just chilling like under a log in my garden, because I got logs in my garden. It wasn't 4 at the same time. They were at different periods in my garden, and each time when I saw one, I didn't go to the garden for like 1 or 2 weeks. I was gone. So my garden really suffered from not watering it based on everything we just talked about and how the soil is dried and, you know, all of those things. I was not in the garden for a long time, y'all. So whew. I don't know, man. It was a crazy summer, y'all. Like, I am actually petrified of snakes. It's one of my biggest fears. I'll tell y'all a quick story. When I was younger meaning in when I was a teenager, like maybe 18 or 17, 18, and I was walking across the street to purchase something from the store. On my way to walk, you know, down, you know, on the sidewalk, I saw a black snake. Now I know it was probably like a garden snake, because, you know, now I'm a gardener and I know all about all the snakes, all the garden snakes, all the ones that just want to eat rats, and the ones like the copperheads that will actually bite you, the poisonous, the non-poisonous. Yes, y'all, I know all about snakes. So I'm begging y'all, please do not go in my comments to tell me how wonderful snakes are. I promise you, I already know. Unless you want to educate the fellow commenters, then, but don't be telling me how I need to get over this fear. I already know that I need to get over the fear. I promise you, everything that you're probably going to write in the comments, I already know. So I'm just letting you guys know, don't talk about snakes in the comments. Actually, y'all talk about whatever y'all want to talk about, but don't tell me to get over it, okay? And don't tell me to face my fears. I already know. Okay. I know how wonderful they are, and some of them are really cute. But over there, under the ground, and that's another thing. I saw so many snake holes in my ground, in my garden, and I saw a snake egg. So I'm like, am I harboring snakes back here? Who do I need to call to come and check to make sure I'm not gonna have any snakes next year? Because they're just, I just don't understand. Before I had a garden, I don't remember ever seeing this. I know I didn't see any snakes, because I'm that type of person that I said, if I see a snake near my house, oh, it's your house now. You own it. You belong to it. I will leave. And matter of fact, I'm not taking anything with me. Go ahead. You can have my clothes. You can have the TV. You can have everything in the house. Okay? That's how I feel. But I must say, I have grown, and I did not move or left the house for the snakes. So we need to figure something out where we can both coexist without terrorizing each other. Because I know that there are snakes that are, you know, some of these snakes are actually in fear of us as much as we're in fear of them. I get it, y'all. Remember I told y'all, I know that snakes actually are scared of some humans, or snakes are scared of humans. So I get it. We're both scared of each other. So how about this? You go hide over there you could exist, do your thing, but go in hiding and do it when I'm not around. How about that? Okay, those are the 13 things, the 13 fails I had in my garden this year, and I'm going to talk about some of the things I plan to do next year to combat some of those things.
Martha Lorraine's signature luxurious body butter is packed with all natural skin-loving ingredients such as cocoa butter, coconut oil, shea butter, vitamin E oil, and baobab oil. Whipped to perfection, it is lightly made to be easily absorbed into the skin without clogging your pores. This body butter is free of parabens, sulfates, and synthetic fragrances.
Your new bestie.